Good morning. We will pay attention to the weighted average method today. According to this method, the total cost of similar items at the beginning of the year plus any units purchased during the year will give us the total cost of units that's available during this specific year. We will therefore take the cost of all the units at the beginning of the year plus the cost of all the units purchased during the year to determine the total cost, and then we will divide this by the number of units during the year to give us the weighted average cost per unit. So all the cost of opening inventory plus the amounts that was purchased during the year is divided by the total number of units that we had available to determine the weighted average cost. The weighted average cost per unit is then multiplied with the amount of units at the end of the year so that we can determine what is the value of our closing inventories. So at the end of the financial year, we will do a stock take and to determine how many units are left over that was not used or sold during this year, and we will multiply this number of units in the closing inventory with the cost per unit. The weighted average method would lessen the influence of increases and decreases of the cost of inventories on the gross profit of the entity because you're working with the average price during the year. It is normally used by entities that purchase large quantities of goods with a very low value and different prices during the year because it will be impractical to determine what is the cost every time when you buy the goods and to take it into account the whole year. The advantages of the weighted average method is that it's easy to implement. It's not necessary to keep track of the purchase price of the different batches that was purchased during the year at different prices. It can be used by an entity that sells items where it's difficult or even impossible to determine the cost price for every individual item, for instance, a business that sells beads. The disadvantages of the weighted average method is that the closing stock necessarily doesn't represent the replacement value. So because you are working with the average cost price from the beginning to the end of the year, and there was an increase in prices the whole year, then this average price will be lower than it would cost to buy new stock to replace them.